A person's socioeconomic background determined how hard they were affected by the coronavirus.
People began to hoard supplies. They went to stores and raided the essentials, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, and even milk and bread. Stores began to limit the number of items individuals can purchase. These people were acting impulsively and not rationally. Websites and stores began to sell desired products for an unreasonable price.
These people that were hoarding all these goods were acting quite impulsively and were acting upon their id, which they just basically did what they felt they should do to survive what was happening.
The number of people that reported being anxious and or nervous doubled from 2019 to 2020. 24% of adults stated that they had experienced psychological distress, which was caused by either their health status or financial status.
Because this great number of people were now experiencing psychological distress, as stated before, the amount of people that were acting upon their unconscious and were doing what they desire, not what they should do, grew exponentially throughout 2020, and which caused things like panic buying and other things. Low-income families were hit the hardest. Many of them, in a study done by Georgetown University, stated they had either lost their jobs or had decreased work and were experiencing house and food insecurities. Of these low-income families, minorities were more likely to experience this specific adversity. 61% of Hispanic/Latino families experienced it. 52% of American Indian/Alaska Native families stated they had experienced this, and 43% of African American families stated they had experienced this. When you compare these numbers to those numbers of white families, the numbers are significantly less. The number for white families that experienced this specific type of adversity was less than 30%. So less than 30% of low-income white families experienced this high level of adversity compared to the almost 50% and over of the typical minority communities in America. On the contrary, some might state that economic status of these minority communities did not determine how hard they were affected by the coronavirus. However people may believe this to be true, it is actually false, because with the shutting down of schools due to quarantine, children were forced to learn through online classes. But to do online classes, for example, you need a computer access. But unfortunately, 39% of children aged 3 to 18 did not have access to internet at home. It was just too expensive. These families that did not have the money to pay for internet access were not able to allow their children to go to school. The children were not allowed to learn, which only disadvantaged them more. These low-income children who did not have the necessary essentials to do school will now be at a huge disadvantage from those who could afford computers, those who could afford to have the internet access required to learn and go to school. It only widened the education gap between the haves, who have computers, and the have-nots, those who did not have a computer nor had access to the internet to learn. So our call to action, finally, is in order to fully understand the effects of COVID-19, we need to understand how it affected all peoples. So this means we need to take a deep dive into how differently COVID affected those minority groups versus the majority groups. the wealthy groups versus the poor groups, those who lived in different areas of the country, just all the different possibilities that might have changed how COVID affected them, we need to look at. Only then will we be able to fully understand COVID and how it affected us.